Welcome to In the Loop. I'm Susan Kenedy. Today we are sitting down with the council's new president, Tom Hucker, who has been a member of the council since 2014. Mr. Hucker, congratulations and welcome to In the Loop. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here in Maryland.
Thank you for having me. I grew up in St. Louis. My parents were World War II generation. My dad fought in World War II and flew bombers over Japan from Saipan. And I'm the youngest of 5 kids that they had in St. Louis. And after college, I got involved in the environmental movement in college and worked on a number of campaigns. And after college, the same organizations that I was working with offered me a job in D.C. So I moved out to D.C. to help run their campaign office in D.C. I lived there for an awful long time, but we ran campaigns all through Maryland. So I got involved in Maryland, familiar with Montgomery County, 30 years ago.
So what was your first gig in politics? Was it the State House in Annapolis?
Well, yeah, I worked as an advocate for an awful long time, as an environmental advocate and a community organizer, and ran my own nonprofit for a while. And then a lot of that involved advocacy for the Purple Line, for expanding health care, for expanding Medicaid, and a number of other issues in Annapolis. So I became familiar with Annapolis.
Our next speaker is Delegate Tom Hucker.
And then you're right, when the seat where I lived in Silver Spring opened up.
Ferocious defender of the environment, champion of offshore wind.
A number of people encouraged me to run for the State House, and so I served there for 8 years.
What kind of energy do we need in the 21st century? Clean energy, green jobs, wind power. Thank you all for being here, for all your hard work.
8 years, and then you ended up here.
Right.
And I know you have a beautiful family. Tell us a little bit about them.
I do. I'm very lucky. I have a wife, Amy Fortin, who is a clinical social worker in D.C., and she works for the D.C. government with the Department of Behavioral Health and helps to run a juvenile mental health diversion program. I'm really proud of her work because she helps a lot of juveniles who have undiagnosed mental health problems and get in trouble with the law. She runs a program that keeps them out of jail and gives them the services that they need.
That's really nice. And your boys, 2 adorable young men.
I do. They're not adorable every second, but Will turned 7 yesterday, and Sam's 9, and they both attend school at Rolling Terrace. Although now under COVID, they're both in these learning pods that are very well run at one at Highland View and one at Pinecrest.
Nice, very nice. They're very, very cute boys.
Right. No, they're a lot of fun.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's get down to business. As you take over the office of president, how does it feel?
Fine.
What do you see as your biggest task moving forward? We're in a tough time right now with COVID, and the economy is very uncertain at this point. What are you looking at as your biggest task?
Well, I had many other plans pre-COVID, but we have been dealing with these twin crises all year, and I think we will be all through 2021 as well, both the global pandemic that we're part of and the recession that it's caused. And as much as there were some plans in place to deal with public health emergencies like this, they were clearly inadequate. Nobody really anticipated the scale of this and the duration. And so a lot of our work this year has focused on administering the aid that we've received from the federal government and getting that out on the street as quickly as possible to help our residents that are in great crisis right now, and to keep our numbers as low as possible. We're doing better than most of the country, but not nearly as well as we want to be. Almost 900 Montgomery County residents have lost their lives, but now 25 residents have been diagnosed with COVID for every 100,000 residents. That's the highest ratio of cases that we've had since the beginning of the pandemic.
Are we equipped to continue to support this recovery moving forward, and are we looking at more federal aid to help us out here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good news, bad news thing like most situations. I'm very confident in the our public health leadership from our Dr. Travis Gales, our Chief Health Officer, Dr. Earl Stoddard, our Emergency Management Director, have been fabulous. The bad news is we have received really insufficient levels of aid and support from both the state and the federal government, unfortunately. It's been really meager. We have spent most of this year giving away allocating the $300 million or so that we've gotten from the federal government, but that's really woefully insufficient, and the state response has been really insufficient as well. The state legislators for years, and I used to be one, we every year had unmet need that we didn't fund because we prudently put money away in a rainy day fund for exactly the type of economic recession we're all now living through. And the Comptroller of Maryland, our Chief Financial Officer, Peter Francho, and the county executive and my colleagues on the county council unanimously put their name on a letter to the governor months ago saying that we needed $500 million from the rainy day fund to be spent on small business relief in particular. And the governor didn't respond to that for months, and then recently he's put out $250 million, of which only a small portion comes to Montgomery County, and it's really woefully insufficient. Too many businesses have gone out of business while they were waiting for aid from the state government from the rainy day fund, and the governor really needs to step up and get more money on the street before we lose more businesses and more workers.
The General Assembly is supposed to meet, I hear, this year. What are you expecting from our leaders there?
Well, I'm hopeful that we'll see a big package of state aid. The trouble is the governor has a huge amount of control, more in Maryland than in most states, over the state budget. We've been through recessions many times, right? 10 years ago we had a very severe recession we are still climbing out of at this point. This is the first recession that not only is caused by a virus, it's nobody's fault. Nobody made bad business decisions that they should not be compensated for. This was caused by a virus, and retail and restaurant businesses were shut down by the governor's order, and they're still restricted by the governor's order. So that to me means we have a special responsibility to make them whole, to make sure the unemployment claims of workers are paid expeditiously, and to make sure that the businesses that were shut down by the government need to be paid so they can pay their rent, so they can pay their staff, so the owners of those businesses can pay their mortgages and their rent, because so many of them are at risk of losing their homes and losing their apartments because they don't have any revenue coming in, and it all comes back to the governor's order, which he had to do to deal with the pandemic, but there's no reason we have so many hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in a state rainy day fund. It's not doing anybody any good in the state bank account. It needs to be administered to small businesses through our local governments. Because this is exactly the rainy day that state assembly members were saving for many years. Yeah,
let's hope we see that move forward in the next several weeks. Let's move to some county issues.
Sure.
You mentioned the Purple Line early in the interview. I know you're a huge advocate of the Purple Line. You've been on the Transportation and Environment Committee your entire time on the council, is that correct?
That's right.
We are 100% for congestion relief here in Montgomery County and Prince George's County. And
so give us an update where this stands. I mean, a lot of people are looking at this as a boondoggle, and it could be one of the biggest failures in transportation across this nation. Are we going to see this through?
The Purple Line is a tremendously good idea, and has been. That's why I've been an advocate for it for so many years. The governor has promised that he's going to get it done. So, I want to take them at their word. Now, they have to put some details on those promises. But I think I was the first one to call for the governor to personally reassure the public that he was going to get this project done. We need to hear the governor say that he's really concerned about this and he's committed to get it done. I think it's critical to his career, frankly. This will be, if it doesn't go forward, one of the biggest transportation debacles in American history. And now he really owns this project, and it has been mismanaged, unfortunately, under his watch. And unfortunately, new Transportation Secretary Greg Slater has to sort of pick up the pieces and try to keep this on track. So they are still negotiating with the Purple Line Transit Partners, the consortium that had been financing and built and overseeing the construction of the Purple Line. They need to either wrap that up and get them back on the job, or begin a new public-private partnership, which is what they say they prefer, or what we would prefer is just administer the rest of the project as a typical state design-build project where you have more control over it.
So do you see in a few years that this will be done? It's not going to be done on time, obviously.
No.
But do we think eventually it will be finished?
Well, that's our great hope, and we need to keep the governor to his promise. He made this promise publicly recently, and he's made this promise for years. So that's our state legislators really need to enforce that, and we're going to do our part too.
Public safety has been a big topic in the news across the country and here in Montgomery County lately. One of the things that you've done in the last several months is put forward a proposal to add some funding to help support or shore up the mobile crisis teams here in Montgomery County, because we're seeing a need for some more mental health support out there.
So we have two MCT requests. The first one is an 82-year-old male who's barricaded himself in his home and a significant history of mental illness.
What do you see is our role in reimagining policing here in Montgomery County as the county council president?
Right. Well, we have a very good and generally well-trained police force. Part of the structural problem they're dealing with is that we ask them to do too many things. We ask them to deal with an awful lot of things that are not their primary responsibility, and they'd be the first ones to say that. So very often and now we have data to back this up. We've known for a long time that a high percentage of their calls are individuals in some kind of psychological mental health crisis.
It is our responsibility to transport them to the hospital and give them to the care and custody of the nearest hospital.
They also deal with an awful lot of residents that are experiencing homelessness or substance abuse problems. And that's not why most people became police officers, and they're not trained mental health professionals. We have one small mobile crisis unit that's in Rockville, and we have a very, very big county and a lot of traffic in the way of getting to emergent situations. So the proposal that I pushed for and all my colleagues have supported is to greatly expand our mobile crisis units and distribute them around the county so that they are like first responders. They can be on the street to be proactive, dealing with residents that are homeless or residents that are in psychological crisis or dealing with substance abuse, and so that they can be called in quickly when a 911 call comes in, and they can get to the scene to help that resident in 5 minutes or 10 minutes and not half an hour.
Let's move to the environment. You've always been a huge champion for the environment, big on getting our numbers down in the waste stream. I know we're looking at a 70% reduction by the end of this year of materials in our waste stream, and we have very lofty goals as far as recycling and reducing our carbon footprint here in Montgomery County. Talk a little bit about your work in that area.
Well, thank you. This has been an emphasis of mine for a long time. The committee that I chair, the Transportation and Environment Committee, passed two bills that one to ban, finally, disposable plastic straws in Montgomery County. And people will still see them for a year or so to allow our restaurants to phase them out. But like other jurisdictions, we're encouraging our restaurants to move to paper straws or to the washable, more durable straws that other people use. It's been funny for me for years. If you go to coastal communities like Annapolis, or you go to even more conservative areas like Florida, an awful lot of the restaurants have phased out plastic straws a long time ago because of their impact on the environment. They can't be recycled. We still have a lot of carry-out restaurants that still use styrofoam. The council banned it 6 years ago, but it hasn't been able to, because of how the law was written, to enforce it very well. So we just fixed that law and expanded it to a different form of polystyrene that looks recyclable, that you're familiar with as red Solo cups, but they actually can't be recycled, so those are banned as well. We're also very focused on our climate goals. We made a very ambitious commitment to be carbon-free by 2035 in Montgomery County, and actually our carbon emissions have dropped considerably since 2005. But we have a long way to go to reach that goal. So we are going to be passing very soon the first building energy performance standard of any county in the nation, so that we can be tracking how much energy use each of our commercial buildings and residential buildings uses, so that we can tighten up their standards for energy performance in the future. And we also will accompany that with many of the incentives that we have out there for building owners to make investments and to take advantage of low interest loans and financing to make energy efficiency investments that will pay themselves back very quickly with the low interest rates that are available now.
Very good. It sounds like a really busy year ahead. Council President Tom Hucker, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Susan.